Hello and welcome to TV Talks, the show where I take a look at both the good and the bad of what television has to offer. And today it's the third season of The Simpsons, the landmark season that marked the show's change from the developing sitcom that it was from the first two seasons to the big household name that it is today. Or at least was up until season 14. But that's neither here nor there at this point. We'll get to that at some point later. So, season 3, like I said, this was the big season, the one that changed everyone's mind about The Simpsons. Well, they liked it just fine. This is the one that really got them hook, line, and sinker. And they just kept getting better and better and better. Now, I already said that I liked the last two seasons. But I also acknowledge that they were definitely trying stuff out. The first season was just the first season, and then the second season, like I said, was a testing ground for what would work and what wouldn't work. So going into the third season, they know what works and what doesn't work by what all they tried in the second season. But how did it turn out? What episodes did we get? Well, because of how much Fox reran this season especially, I think you already know what we got, but for the sake of the review, let's pretend we don't, and let's get on with the first episode, Stark Raving Dad. Bart puts his lucky red hat in the laundry, and then it turns Homer's white shirt pink, and so then he gets called in to Mr. Burns' office at work because they think he's some sort of free-thinking radical. Then he gets put in a mental asylum with Michael Jackson. I'll explain that. There's a bit of spoilers in this one, but I kind of have to talk about that. But there's this big, fat, bald, buck-toothed guy who sounds just like Michael Jackson. And he acts like him, too, and he sings like him, sort of. And then they take a lot of tests, and they find out Homer is actually sane, and same with Michael Jackson. He's just there voluntarily to help. And then Bart finds out that Homer was with Michael Jackson, and then everyone finds out. Meanwhile, there's this big subplot that actually takes up quite a bit of the story about Lisa's birthday coming up, and she thinks that Bart's going to forget about her. And, well, it's just her struggling with her thoughts that Bart doesn't care about her. Because, like I said in the last one, Bart is a pretty nasty brother to her sometimes. And yeah, he really does kind of push her aside just for his own gain. But in this one, with the help of Michael Jackson, he makes it all worthwhile and he makes it all better. This episode has always been one of my favorites. It is hilarious, and it is also super heartwarming with the Lisa, It's Your Birthday song at the very end. Michael Jackson, you did a great job. Oh, no, I'm sorry. John J. Smith, wink. For whatever reason, Michael Jackson did not want to be credited in this one, and for some of the songs, they had to switch out a dub person to sing, but you can tell where there's the dub artist and where there's the real Michael Jackson. Because Michael Jackson sounds more like this, but then the guy who dubs his voice sounds a little scratchier, you can kind of tell. Because Michael Jackson doesn't have a kind of a scratchy-ish voice. For example, the Billie Jean song in the beginning, that's the dub person for sure. And Lisa, It's Your Birthday, that's Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, I think, later even admitted it, but to this day, even in the Season 3 DVD release, in the booklet, it says John J. Smith. I don't know why he didn't want to be credited, but, well, as they make fun of in the episode Itchy and Scratchy the movie, Michael Jackson was in there, but he didn't use his real name, but you could tell it was him. But aside from Michael Jackson, who was an amazing guest star, the best they've had so far, rivaling Kelsey Grammer, Sideshow Bob, those two are right up there at this point. The Michael Jackson character is great. He's really funny. He pulls the episode together, and he really teaches Homer and Bart some stuff. The humor is right on point, like how far they go in thinking that Homer's a free-thinking radical because of his pink shirt. The drama is really great, and all the story is really great with Lisa's part. The only thing I'm not that crazy about in the episode, and it's not much of a negative, it's just kind of flat, is the revelation of who Michael Jackson really is. Now, here's a bit of spoilers, but since this episode came out in 1991, I'm sure we all know what happened. It turns out Michael Jackson this whole time was Leon Kompowski, a worker who just decided to start talking like Michael Jackson, and everyone thought he was Michael Jackson. Doesn't make any sense, it's kind of weird, but you know what? It's in the literal last 30 seconds, so it's not gonna hurt this episode much at all. Stark Raving Dad has always been one of my favorite episodes, and it's one that I keep going back to over and over and over again. The second episode is Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington. So Lisa enters an essay contest and then she gets put in the finalist category, so they all get to go to Washington, D.C. so that they can all read their essays. However, Lisa stumbles across a backroom deal between some senators and a deforestation bill, and then loses faith in the country she loves so much. Not as much of a funny one, although has some good moments like with Homer at the Mint and Bart the Spirit of St. Louis, but this one mostly, again, is a story one. Unlike Stark Raving Dad, which was definitely a half and half, this one is probably 80% story, especially in the back half. When Lisa sees what happens with the senators, it really kind of takes her on an existential journey, because she's really wondering whether or not she was right about the country who raised her and that she believed in for so long. Eventually, she just decides to expose it all, and while she doesn't win the competition, she knows she did win in a sense because she helped make the government a lot more accountable, because she ended up busting those senators. It's kind of an easy one to talk about because, well, it's kind of a simple one, but it's also simple in its complexity, if that makes any sense. It's got a lot of complex elements to it, but they're easy to summarize. So I'm not going to talk a ton about this one, just go see it because it's definitely worth seeing. One of the best Lisa episodes so far. Woohoo, when Flanders failed. So, Ned Flanders announces his new store, the Leftorium, a place that only sells left-handed things. Left-handed melon bars, left-handed ledgers, left-handed cars. The ones that they make in England. And everyone's all excited about it, but no one really goes. And Homer keeps seeing people that need left-handed stuff, but he doesn't want to tell them about it because he wants to see Flanders fail, because he hates him so much. He goes as far as to make a wish from a wishbone that Flanders would fail, because, Homer hates Flanders for some reason, and he really wants to see Ned's store go up in flames. But as he sees the Leftorium slowly getting pulled under, he starts feeling bad about what he did, and he really starts feeling bad about Ned, but there's just something in him that can't bring him to help him until Ned ends up losing everything. Something inside of Homer really sparks the humanity inside of him. This is another one like Stark Raving Dad that's kind of 50-50. But this one is an actual 50-50. The first half is definitely a humor episode. A lot of humor. And then the second half, starting where Ned really starts losing everything, that's when it starts getting all serious, because even though Homer really hates Flanders, there's still a humanity piece inside of him that doesn't want to see this happen to him. Because even Homer knows that Ned hasn't done anything objectively wrong. He's just trying to start a new business venture and in fact actually help people, like the left-handed people. Because there's a lot of stuff that's just built for right-handed people only. A lot of left-handed friends that would complain on and on and on about this. So if only the Leftorium was actually real. But we all get that really nice, super sappy, happy ending, blah 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 blah. The whole episode is great, it's a lot of fun, and it's really nice to see Homer act this way and finally develop more as a character. Homer did get some development in the first 2 seasons, but this one is probably one of the biggest ones he's gotten to date. And it really, really works. The 4th episode in the season is Bart the Murderer. After a field trip, Bart accidentally stumbles upon the Springfield Mafia and then ends up becoming their bar boy. One day, Skinner makes Bart late, causing Fat Tony, the leader of the mob, to ruin an important meeting. So then they find out what Skinner did, and then he mysteriously disappears. And then all of a sudden, Bart keeps getting framed for the murder. There's one small issue I have with this episode, and I call it small, but I can see how it would bug other people. This is one of those stories where the real story happens midway through. But with this one, it's a little more understandable, because I guess you need time for Bart to, stumble across the mafia and get in their ranks. But the chocolate factory scene could have been cut down a lot, probably. Didn't really affect that much in the grand scheme of things. And I guess a better name for this one would be Bart the Mobster instead of Bart the Murderer. Well, then even then, Bart didn't actually go to the chocolate factory, now that I think of it, because he was just stuck there licking envelopes. That was funny, but again, it could have been cut down a bit. But it's the first appearance of the Springfield Mafia, the wildly popular characters of Fat Tony, Louie, and Legs. And then a couple more here and there as the show goes on. But they weren't in this one. Some of the funniest parts are the thing that is based off of the murder of Skinner, supposedly, where it's so over-dramatized and inaccurate, and Homer says that they changed enough so that they didn't have to pay for the rights. Typical Hollywood, really funny. The revelation of what really happened with Skinner, and then how far people like Louie and Legs are to go to show that Bart was actually the godfather of the Mafia the whole time. It's funny, probably my least favorite of the four so far, but it's far, far from bad. It's not even just okay, I'd say it's good. Like, standard Simpsons good, which is always good. Next up is Homer Defined. During a meltdown at the plant, Homer magically shuts it down, even though, well, he didn't know what he did. So everyone starts saying pulling a Homer, as in, like, getting good luck. And then all of a sudden the real meltdown starts again, right when Homer's getting all the fame and glory, and then he has to show just what he did. And then, meanwhile, Bart and Milhouse end up splitting up because Milhouse's mom doesn't think Bart's a good influence. And now this one would probably be my lesser favorite of the five, so yeah, we're kind of just getting down there, but don't worry, things pick up in the next one. This one isn't bad, not at all. I'd say it's fine. It's a good one. It's decent. There are a couple things here and there that bug me, like Milhouse's mom gets persuaded a little too easy to fix the conflict, probably because it was running a little long, but if they would have made that the main plot in the story instead of packaging it in with this one, they probably could have gone on longer and had the story develop a bit more, because it kind of goes nowhere. Bart doesn't learn anything, Milhouse doesn't learn anything. We get a little bit of development with Bart and Marge, but it's not much, and it's not something we haven't seen before. Also, the dictionary running joke, while funny, goes on too much. It's like 4 or 5 times. There's a couple other things here and there, but this episode is still really good. The other humor spots that it has in the Homer one are still really good. It's just that the subplot's the part where it kind of falls a little flat. Not bad, not at all. I'd still say it's a good, just good. Not okay, but good. One of the easier ones to talk about because it's just kind of a simple story. Now, I promised things would get better in the next one, and they will. Like Father, Like Clown. Ooh boy, this one. A really famous one. So, after breaking so many promises to Bart, Krusty finally decides to make it up to him and appeared at dinner. While Krusty says grace in a Jewish prayer, Lisa finds out that he is Jewish, but through more elaboration, Krusty reveals that he has an estranged father he hasn't talked to because his father wanted him to be a rabbi like him, but Krusty wanted to be a clown. Herschel Krostowski. So we know Krusty's real name. And even when Krusty was starting to make gains in the clown world, he would always look over and see his father bragging about how much he knew about the Torah, and how much that his son was going to benefit the Jewish community. But then when everything just finally went up in flames and Krusty was revealed as the performer, they haven't spoken since. So it's all about Bart and Lisa chasing around Rabbi Krostowski, trying to not only use logic, but also use Jewish scripture to get him to talk to his son again. Because Krusty, he wants to see his dad again, and he keeps trying to call him, but he's always so nervous and scared of what his dad's going to say. This is the first one in the season that is definitely just a story one. The first act has a bit of jokes here and there, like with Milhouse randomly showing up at the Simpsons house, but the rest is definitely all about the story. And Jackie Mason is great as Rabbi Krostowski. Almost makes you wish that he didn't get killed off, right? Remember that episode? Made a review about it, and I'm really going to rip into it when we get into that season. So, this episode is great. It really is moving and emotional, because Krusty's always been portrayed as kind of a scoundrel. Always been portrayed as a nasty guy who's only out there to get money and wealth, even in this one. But we see, again, like with Homer and when Flanders failed, we see more of a human side to Krusty. And we really see what goes on in his head. And even though it seems like he's got everything together because of his lap of luxury lifestyle, there's always been a piece of him inside that's been empty because he doesn't have his family. We don't really know what happened to his mom, but maybe they're just saving that until they really get desperate. So in other words, how they are right now. Ooh, the second Treehouse of Horror. So the first one was such a big hit, they decided to do it again. So this one's about a monkey paw that grants wishes, Bart having crazy, strange powers and tormenting the town with them, and Mr. Burns putting Homer's brain in a robot, and then the robot turns out to be super lazy. This one is probably just as good as the first one, which the first one I said was a decent one. I'd probably say this one's a little bit of a step up. The monkey paw one is pretty good. I really like the middle story with Bart because it's strange actually, those ones are normally the weak ones. They even say that in the show. And then the Homer's brain in the robot one it's fine. But it's that middle story that's great, where Bart has to torment the town and then make them all happy, otherwise he'll change them forever, and then he ends up relating with Homer more after they turn him into a jack-in-the-box. The first story is good, it's just kind of a standard, oh, wish was going wrong thing, but it's still pretty good to see the Simpsons put their spin on it. It's the robot one that's just kind of standard and normal. But hey, standard and normal by Simpsons standards is great by most other show standards, so why not give this one a shot? So Lisa's pony. There's always been a little bit of a running thing where Lisa loves ponies and horses, and she really, really wants one. So Homer decides to get her one, but it's super, super expensive. But he doesn't want his little girl to be upset and lose the one thing that she really likes in life aside from good grades and being a suck-up. So he decides to take a second job at the Quickie Mart, and then proceeds to practically die from exhaustion. But he does it all to make Lisa happy. This is one of the first times in the entire show we've seen Homer really, really try to be a good father. And he's practically killing himself doing it. In my mind, this makes up for things like War of the Simpsons and all the other times where Homer really acts like an inconsiderable jerk. Because he's really trying here. He's really trying to make members of his family happy. And yeah, he's practically dying, but every time he sees the smile on Lisa's face, it really keeps him going. But then, of course, when Lisa finds out how he's getting the money by pretty much dying of exhaustion, she doesn't think she can hold on to it, but she really likes the horse, so what's she gonna do? Another one that's primarily just story. They're really, really trying to push the father-daughter angle here, which is one that they try every so often, and whenever they try, it always seems to work. Or at least it did early on. Because Lisa and Homer are as different as people could be. It's surprising that they're even related. Because Lisa's a highly opinionated brainiac, and Homer is a easily swayed idiot. But yet they find common ground, and yet they get along. This is the first time where they really tried to push this angle, and I really think it worked. Lisa's pony is very heartwarming, and it has some very good humor moments here and there, but it's the story that keeps you coming back for more. Saturdays of Thunder. So Homer fails a father quiz of knowing stuff about Bart, and it turns out Bart is entering a soapbox derby racing competition against Martin and Nelson, and so Homer eventually decides to help him out with that, and then they both try to win. This episode is, it's fine. Not great, not very good, but just it's fine. I kind of think this one is a little bit forgettable, and, well, I have a good reason for that. They didn't really go far enough. They didn't go far enough with the humor, and they didn't go far enough with the story. But this one, it seemed like they were, even while writing it, debating on which one this was going to be. Is it going to be funny, or is it going to be heartwarming? Because there are moments where Homer's trying to grow as a father with Bart, because Bart is probably his least favorite of the kids. Well, sometimes Maggie, because he keeps forgetting about Maggie. But they do some of that, but then they also try to throw in a lot of humor in there. However, the episode isn't structured well enough to kind of make either of these work. I mean, yeah, the stuff's fine, but we don't know what the real focus here is. Is it just a wacky, funny story that is supposed to house a lot of good humor? Or is it supposed to be an actually good, deep, sentimental story where Homer grows as a character? I don't know. They kind of do both and they kind of do neither. The episode's fine. It doesn't really do anything wrong. It's just that the structure itself is kind of messed up. And it's a little weird that Bart's hero is a soapbox derby racer and then he never mentions him again. That always kind of bugged me. But this is definitely one of Nelson's most evil performances to date. And also, this is one of the few Martin appearances that I actually can tolerate. So yeah, not very good, not bad at all, just kind of middle of the road. But I'll tell you what isn't middle of the road, the next episode, which is one of the most famous episodes of this entire season, Flaming Moe's. So, Moe's bar is getting very, very low traction, is losing a lot of money because no one is going there. So Homer introduces him to a drink that he made by pouring every single bit of liquor he had in the house in some children's cough syrup and then lighting it on fire. And it tastes delicious. But then right when people start taking notice of it, Moe changes the name to Flaming Moe and then claims that he created the drink, and then later goes on to create this elaborate backstory where his family bartendered for the Tsar of Russia and then created that. And then he's getting all the attention. Moe's bar is getting huge and popular. And even Aerosmith decides to play there. All while Homer is getting nothing. He is getting no attention, no royalties, no anything. And every time someone tries to point out that he was the one who created it, he always gets shut down. Like Stark Raving Dad, this is another one that's both humor and story, but it doesn't go too far into the story. It just shows Homer's relationship with Moe, and how Moe does feel bad, but he can't turn down all the wealth. But then, of course, it's funny in the end where Homer ruins it for everybody, so that if he can't win, nobody can. Especially not Moe. But at least Moe does feel bad about it in the end, and even throughout the whole thing. And this has, in my personal opinion, the best Bart prank call to Moe's ever. I'm not going to say the name because, family-friendly show. But Bart ends up calling Moe's, and then you know how he always calls Moe's, and then he'll say something like, I'm looking for Mrs. Bath, first name Anita. Okay, Anita Bath. Is Anita Bath here? Hey everybody, I need a bath here. Stuff like that. So Bart calls up with one of his names, but then turns out there's a customer in there who actually does have that name. That makes me laugh out loud every time. And also how Moe thinks that the liquor company's mascot's a real person. All the stuff that goes on inside the restaurant. Everything in there is great. This is another one of those classic Simpsons episodes that's just fantastic. I can't think of anything wrong with it. Everything it does, it's really, really good, and it just gets better and better as the episode goes on. This one's a classic for a very good reason, and if you haven't seen it already for whatever reason, you gotta check it out now, because it is definitely worth seeing. So the next one has one of the hardest episode names to pronounce. Burns Verkaufen der Kraftwerk, which is German for I don't know. Give me a break. So Mr. Burns is starting to get fatigued of the power plant and decides that he wants to move on to something else. And so a couple of German investors end up buying the plant from him. While Mr. Burns decides to go out and live up his life, the Germans end up trying to revolutionize the plant. But it's not some sort of evil, hostile takeover story. They're actually making things better. It's just that Homer is the one who's suffering here because, as we all know, Homer's the worst safety inspector ever. This episode is another classic. There's got stuff like the Land of Chocolate scene, the revelation that Mr. Burns is actually hated by everybody. I'm saying revelation a lot in this because, well, there's a lot of that in this season. The Germans are great characters. I love the line where it's like, well, he had a very big company, he had a very big company, and then we both have a very big company. These characters are really lovable, they're really great, they're a lot of fun. The stock part, even though it overall was kind of pointless, I love it. With the depressed stockbroker, all the stuff Lenny bought, like getting like the plastic surgery where he can't stop smiling. This whole episode is just great from beginning to end. Although lately it's not so much of a classic with the exception of the Land of Chocolate part. People don't really talk about this one much anymore, even though it was a big hit at the time and was the talk of the town for a while, because it was just really funny, but I guess more bigger episodes came out, like Who Shot Mr. Burns, Cape Fear, Lisa the Vegetarian, all that stuff, and then just kind of overtook this one. But I don't think it deserves to be swept under the rug. It really tried to do something well, and it pulled it off. So Burns Verkaufen der Kraftwerk, aside from your name, everything about you is great. Seriously, couldn't we get an English translation? I mean, we had another episode with a really long, crazy ethnic name in the 8th season, but they ended up changing that in the mid-2000s to get an English name. Can't we do the same for this? Our next one is I Married Marge. Wow. So this is one of the biggest Simpsons episodes ever. This is one of the biggest flashback ones where they tell us how the whole thing began. Remember the one last season where Homer and Marge tell about their story where they ended up getting together? Well, this is how we find out where they get married. And this blows that episode out of the water. Now, I loved that episode in the 2nd season, but this one is one of The Simpsons' finest. This is a story one through and through. And I've seen some people get teary-eyed at this one. This one is... well, let's talk about it. So, we see that Homer and Marge ended up fooling around at a golf course, and then Bart gets conceived. Homer doesn't have a good enough job at the golf place to fund his family life in getting married to Marge at a seedy chapel. So, he ends up trying to get a job at the nuclear plant and bettering himself, but that goes up in flames, and then he keeps trying more and more jobs, but he keeps failing at all of them. Meanwhile, Bart is developing in Marge's womb, and, well, they're really excited for family life, but Homer doesn't have enough money to pay for anything. He doesn't have enough to be a family provider. So, he does the unthinkable and decides to just leave. Yeah, he leaves, and he decides to send Marge the checks that he makes so that she can help raise the baby. But he doesn't think that he'll be a good family provider, and he'll just be a burden on the family if he was there. This, of course, breaks Marge's heart, but it makes Selma and Patty happy. Yeah, Patty and Selma are the villains in this one, probably one of the first times in the entire series. It shows just how much they hate Homer for whatever reason, because I always thought that they hated him because of what he said in Krusty Gets Busted. But I guess they just never liked him to begin with. That's not here nor there. We also find out that Marge's mother doesn't like him, but she doesn't like anybody. This episode really puts you on an emotional roller coaster. From beginning to end, it's non-stop. Sure, there's a part in the middle where Homer says that everything turns out well. Really, I don't know why they put that part in there, but, well, I guess it just serves to be a reminder that everything's going to be okay. But we already know it's going to be okay. It's The Simpsons. So nothing really changes at this part, except for some of the stuff that we're going to see in the later seasons, where things actually do start changing for real. Very good episode. I'm sure you've already seen it, so why bother keep going on? Radio Bart. So Bart gets a radio thing for his birthday where he speaks into a microphone and comes out a radio, blah, 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 blah. So he decides to pull a lot of jokes with this, and then eventually decides to go a little too far in putting the radio down a well and then pretend to be a little boy that gets trapped. And then it becomes this big media phenomenon until he gets busted. We've seen this kind of thing here and there, but it's not one of those tropes that's overused, so it doesn't really bug me. It's another decent episode. Not fantastic, but just kind of decent. I like some of the satire with the police force where instead of trying to help the boy, they just do menial things like reading him stories or turning him into a tourist attraction. They don't actually try to help him, they just promote the cause. That's always great. There's the song where they sing about their love going down the well. It's a simple episode that does a lot of things right, but compared to the other ones we've had in this season, it's just not big and strong enough to take down the giants that we've had. Lisa the Greek. So this is another one like Lisa's Pony where we see the father-daughter aspect. However, like I said, that Homer was really being a good father in that one, this one is a lot more shallow. So Homer discovers that Lisa is really good at predicting the outcome of football games. And then they decide to spend Daddy-Daughter Day together where he ends up placing bets behind Lisa's back and then making a lot of money. However, when football season's over, he doesn't want to spend time with Lisa anymore. Yeah, we can see where this one's going, right? So this one is not very popular, and I can kind of see why. People don't really talk about it. They don't like it. They don't hate it. It's just kind of there. That's kind of how I feel with this one. It's not very good. Like how I said that Saturdays of Thunder was just kind of in the middle. This one I put it slightly under middle and put it in the just not that good category. It's still really funny and really nice, but it's just kind of ruined by Homer's shallowness. I mean, we've seen him go so far in episodes like, well, I Married Marge and of course Lisa's Pony. And this one just kind of ruins it. If this one came before Lisa's Pony, I think this one would be actually a bit better. But because it comes significantly after it, and it just shows that all this development was for nothing. The episode is fine, it's not very memorable, but it's just that one little part that always bugs me. Sure, everything turns out fine in the end, but even still, was the whole Lisa's Pony thing just a guilt? Or does that come after it in continuity, or what's going on? I don't know, but this one is definitely not up to par with the others. But it's also not bad either. Like I said, it does have some good moments in it here and there. But it's just, I keep repeating myself over and over, so yeah, not good, but not very bad either. I'd give it like a 4.8 out of 10. So Homer Alone, this is another one that keeps getting swept under the rug. So Marge goes off to a vacation after having a huge nervous breakdown, and then it's about Homer trying to raise the kids and then failing at it. Yeah, Homer is a big idiot, so one wonders how he's even able to raise the kids. Well, this shows you just how he's able to not do it. First of all, Bart and Lisa at Patty and Selma's. This is the highlight of the entire episode, this subplot. It is hilarious, just seeing how weird and disturbing Patty and Selma are, and then having Bart and Lisa, these impressionable kids, getting thrown into that. Oh, it's great. The stuff with Homer and Maggie it's good, just that subplot is just where all the great humor is, like the blackhead gun. That is my favorite part. Bart comes out of the bathroom with like this gun, he's like, "Hey Lisa, pew pew, you're dead." "Ew, Bart, that's a blackhead gun." "Ew!" And just starts freaking out. Oh, it's so funny. The animation, especially on a lot of their reactions to this stuff, is hilarious. It's great. This is some of the best reaction shots they've had in the show. Also, thumbs up to Clamato reference in there. I don't know if you remember, but I had this video where I drank that stuff. It is disgusting. It's a tomato clam drink, and they say that Patty and Selma love it in this. So yeah, that just kind of helps push it a little bit further in my direction. Like I said, the stuff with Homer and Maggie is good, it's fine, but we've seen this kind of stuff here and there on other sitcoms. It's just the subplot that really makes the episode shine. Pretty good one overall. Again, not very much talked about, but, well, I'd say it's worth a shot. But you know what is worth a shot, but everyone already knows about it? Bart the Lover. People already know all about this one, and they rave about it, because this one is great. It's another one of those 50-50 ones where the first half is about humor, and the second half is about story. So, Ms. Krabappel goes too far in taking everybody's yo-yo, so Bart decides to do the unthinkable. Because Ms. Krabappel is having a terrible romantic life, he decides to play a prank on her, or at least a prank in his eyes. In everyone else's eyes, it's something terrible. But what he decides to do is pretend to be a young, eligible bachelor who is a great heartthrob and who would be the perfect fit for Ms. Krabappel. It's a man named Woodrow, who looks like Gordie Howe, who says that he would be perfect for her, and then he keeps sending her these letters over and over again, just saying all the stuff about him that really drives her wild. And Ms. Krabappel thinks that this Woodrow guy is real, and she ends up falling in love with this Woodrow person. And then Bart decides to have Woodrow meet Ms. Krabappel at the Gilded Truffle. But then when she gets stood up, he realized he went way too far. This is basically Bart's version of When Flanders Failed, where that one shows that Homer absolutely hates Ned Flanders with a passion but still has humanity in him. This is the same thing for Bart. But I think this episode's actually even better, and I really, really like When Flanders Failed, but this one somehow is even better. Because, well, of course, the teacher and the student are going to be arch enemies, but it really shows that the horrible little kid, because Bart is actually a worse person than Homer, I'd say. But he's got humanity. He knows when he goes too far, but that's only when it's too late. But when he knows that it's too far, he does whatever he can to make it right. Wow, this episode was intense, because we really got to see how sad Miss Krabappel was in great detail. Yikes. Like I said, I know you guys have seen this one already, but if you haven't for some reason, go out and see it. I can't do it justice by talking about it. Another one we all know and love is Homer at the Bat, especially because of Doug Walker really helping bring this one to the limelight after it kind of gets swept under the rug again. But thanks, Doug, for bringing this one out, because, oh boy, look at that guest star list. Guest star are Marsha Wallace, Wade Boggs, Jose Canseco, Roger Clemens, Ken Griffey Jr., so many more, like Darryl Strawberry. So many baseball people. These are the actual people in here. And yep, this one's a great one. So Mr. Burns decides to put a softball team together with a whole bunch of big name Major League Baseball players so that he can win a big payout when he ends up betting against a really rich other power plant owner. But then somehow Homer gets involved with the team. It's just a bunch of great stuff. Parodying baseball, playing off of these people's real life personalities. Of course, the guest stars are fantastic. There's that nice song. My favorite part is the interdimensional portal that one of them falls into. Sorry that I can't really point out which one's which. I'm not a big sports guy, so I don't really know who's who. I think it was Ozzie Smith. But anyways, he falls into this big tourist trap area where it just sends him through like an interdimensional transport. And then of course there's this big thing where all of the people can't show up to the game because there's something happening to them. There's that one of them getting in a barroom fight. There's one of them having to save someone who's in a burning house. Another one who's been turned into a chicken mentally. The episode is just full of great laughs that keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. This is another one of those season 3 episodes that just builds and builds and builds as it goes on. That's one of the big themes of this one. Starts off good, but then just gets into a great category. What can I say about Homer at the Bat except for its non-stop laughs from beginning to end? What's not to love? Separate Vocations takes the focus away from Homer a bit and puts it on Bart and Lisa again. Have you noticed that they've been getting a lot of screen time, but you know who hasn't been getting a lot of focus in these episodes? Marge. Yeah, I've only mentioned her like, what, twice, 3 times in this whole thing? Where are all the Marge episodes? I actually just realized this right now. Well, I know there is one coming up, especially but this is not a very Marge-heavy season. It's about Homer and Bart and Lisa mostly. Wow, I never noticed that. So yeah, this one's about Lisa and Bart taking an aptitude test, seeing what they would be in their future careers. Lisa wants to be a jazz musician and Bart wants to be, well, nothing really. He doesn't care. First of all, the aptitude test is ridiculous and absolutely hilarious. Like, what do you like the smell of most? Bank customers, French fries, motor oil, stuff like that. Then what kind of animal do you identify as most? Like carpenter ant, a lawyer shark, a nurse shark, or a lawyer bird. And then it gets even better from there, where it turns out that Bart's going to be a police officer, so then the police let him go on a ride-along. Then Lisa finds out she's destined to be a homemaker and ends up becoming a backstreet rebel. It turns Bart, the normally rebellious kid, into a law and order person, and then Lisa, the normal law and order person, into a rebel. It's a perfect character 180 story, and there's no supernatural stuff involved. It's just, well, this is what the aptitude test has declared that they will be, so they must go in this direction, sort of, except for Lisa, because I don't know very many homemakers who act like that. The episode is pretty good, not one of the best ones, but it's still pretty darn good. The best parts is just seeing Bart sucking up to Skinner almost, but not in an annoying Martin way, just him becoming a cop. It's really funny. The stuff with Lisa is good too. Another one of those simple ones, but with a story like this, it kind of has to keep it simple. Talk of death. So, Santa's little helper needs a big surgery, but it's really expensive, so he runs away and gets taken in by Mr. Burns. And so, yeah, this episode's good. It's fine. It's a very simple story, despite how heavy it takes itself. This is a very serious one, with almost no humor in it, with the exception of the lottery stuff. But of course, it's fine in the end, because Santa's little helper comes back, and then everything's okay. This one I'd also put in the fine category, where Lisa the Greek was slightly under okay. I'd put this one slightly above okay, mostly because the story is really gripping. But it just kind of drags. It didn't even really need to be this long. While the veterinary hospital stuff is actually pretty good, with like the hamster and stuff, this one overall is just, I don't know what it is about this one. There's just something that doesn't really grab me about it. It doesn't do anything wrong per se, but it doesn't really do anything standoutish that other Simpsons episodes don't do. Well, you know what I mean, right? So yeah, I'm gonna cut this one a little short because I have no idea what to say about it. Just take my word for it that it's fine. It's above average. So, Colonel Homer, featuring the guest star of Beverly D'Angelo as Lurleen Lumpkin. This is the only Marge episode throughout the entire season. And even then, she shares it with Homer. So Homer ends up going out to another bar and seeing a country singer named Lurleen Lumpkin. She is a great singer, but no one is giving her a chance, so Homer decides to become her manager. However, it's very clear that Lurleen is falling for Homer, and this makes Marge very angry. Of course, the musical segments are great, and it's nice to see Homer actually trying to help somebody else who isn't in his family, or even someone he doesn't even really know. But it's also showing that Marge knows what's going on there, and even though Homer is trying to be a good person, she's a lot more streetwise than he is. And it's not even him being stupid. Actually, it's really Homer being just a nice guy. But he's just, well, he's so convinced that they're just friends that he can't see what's right in front of him. He's not really getting greedy either. He, like I said, just wants to help. But even then, it's not really a story episode because it is really funny. While there are a bit of story bits, especially at the end. All the humor stuff they try is really good. The Lurleen character is really nice, even though she is a little bit of an antagonist. Even then, it's not really intentional. It's just because she's really lonely. She doesn't have any real malicious intent. The episode's a classic, and for very good reasons. Colonel Homer gets a thumbs up in my book. And now the episode we've all been waiting for, or at least I have. Black Widower, the return of my favorite character, Sideshow Bob. So, Sideshow Bob reappears, now Selma's boyfriend and then later fiance. And then Bart tries to prove that Sideshow Bob is actually still evil. So, this one is a bit of a strange turn for Sideshow Bob. So we've seen in the last one, Krusty Gets Busted, that Sideshow Bob is actually a sane individual. The only reason he did what he did at Krusty is because, well, one, he hated Krusty with all his heart, and two, well, he thought that kids were being talked down to on the show and he really wanted to enlighten them. With this one, Sideshow Bob is a full-blown psychopath. And I love it. I really do. I mean, it actually kind of explains how Bob ended up becoming a bit more psycho. Because, well, prison is not the kind of place for an intellectual guy like Sideshow Bob. And it shows that he's slowly deteriorating. Even as the seasons go on, he slowly gets more and more insane. Just slowly becoming this on-edge psychomaniac. So yeah, this was one of those big development episodes. It's great, it's got a lot of gripping story. The mystery is really good too, because there actually is a mystery about what Sideshow Bob's plan is, and it all makes sense. None of it is forced. The only slightly forced thing is that one joke about the smoking at the end, but that was really, really funny. It's another episode that just builds and gets better and better. And it even shows that Sideshow Bob actually still has a little bit of humanity in him, even though he is a little insane. Of course, it's all going to go away the next time we see him, but enjoy it while it lasts. And there are parts where Sideshow Bob does convince you that he's still normal, like with the whole MacGyver subplot. It's times like that that make you think, is Sideshow Bob really still crazy, or is Bart wrong? Of course, because we all know Sideshow Bob comes back as a mainstay antagonist, that Bart is not wrong. I mean, we all know that, but at the time, you know, it was kind of up in the air. This is definitely a bit better episode than Krusty Gets Busted, because we actually get to see Sideshow Bob in full force, and in a lot better animation. Sure, the animation in Krusty Gets Busted was one of the best in Season 1, but this one is definitely way better than Seasons 1 and 2. The lighting, especially, when Sideshow Bob shows his real colors, that is really great. The lighting in this one really helps convey the emotion in the story. Another one of those really great ones, and at this point, when I rewatched this one, I was thinking, man, how am I going to pick a favorite in this season? Well, when we get to the end, you'll find out. We have 3 episodes left. One of those 3 is the Otto Show. After a Spinal Tap concert, Otto loses his license and then moves in with the Simpsons and causes a lot of trouble. I'm going to be honest, Otto is one of my lesser favorite characters. Now, Martin is always going to be my least favorite character in The Simpsons, unless they decide to do something really stupid with another character. But I don't like Martin. Otto is one of my lesser favorite ones, but I don't hate him. I don't at all. It's just that he's kind of one note. He's just kind of the punk rock idiot stoner guy. He's a fine character, just one that works in small doses. So I was a little worried when they were going to give him a whole episode to himself. Well, not all to himself, but, you know, make him really a mainstay character. And how did it turn out? It's good. Not fantastic, but it's good. It's good. It's definitely good. All the stuff Otto does is still pretty funny. It's just typical Simpsons stuff. But where it really gets good is where he goes to the DMV and then is able to pander to Patty and Selma with how much they hate Homer Simpson. Because as we all know, Patty and Selma despise Homer with every fiber of their smoky being. So they just overlook everything wrong he's doing in the driver's test just so they can get more dirt on Homer. That last little bit, the whole last act, is really the best part. The rest of the stuff is fine, like with Bart getting a guitar and thinking it's broken, that was good. The parts where Otto moves in with the Simpsons, that's also good. But it's just that the last part is significantly better. It's, I guess, technically another one that builds, but only by default. It's pretty good. Not one of the best, but I'd say it's worth a viewing. Now, Bart's friend falls in love, so there is a new girl who moves into Springfield Elementary, and then Milhouse falls in love with her. And then, of course, Bart feels like he is the third wheel, and ends up trying to tamper with this relationship. It's another good one, like the Otto Show, just, it's good. Kind of the same exact thing. The first 2 acts are just kind of okay, and then the last act is a lot better, but it's not about humor, that one. That time it actually is story, saying how what Bart did affected Milhouse. Now, what I wish is that instead of the Lisa thing that Milhouse has, if this girl would have just stayed, because she really does make Milhouse happy. It really makes him feel like he's being respected for once, because everyone hates Milhouse. Except for Bart, of course. But you know what I mean. So this would have been great to see, but we never see her again, and it would have been nice to get a little closure. I can really tell they like each other, but it's just not that gripping of a story as much as they thought it was. But that last third is definitely worth it. It's another pretty good one. So now the last one of the season, Brother, Can You Spare 2 Dimes? So, it turns out that Homer has a half-brother this whole time named Herb, voiced by Danny DeVito. So Homer sets out to go meet him, and it's instant brotherly love at first sight. Because they find out about each other, and they are so excited to meet each other. It's just the rest of the episode is them being happy, and then Homer helping his brother out at work. And then the whole thing ends up blowing up when Homer creates a monster of a car that is super expensive. This is kind of the reverse Otto show when Bart's friend falls in love. It's really, really good for the first 2 acts, but then it's the ending that kind of ruins it. You see, I don't know what it is. It's just so nice to see Homer this happy and seeing this great family angle, because we know that, well, Homer is kind of a shallow guy, but it's really great to see him care this much, and for what little we see Herb, we can also tell he's a little bit lonely and that he really values family. So it was really nice to see them happy. And it would have been nice to have the big ending thing that they had with the ruined car in the middle, and then they end up making up at the end. But this episode doesn't really bug me because there's another episode in a season or 2 that is the part 2 to this one and is the ending that we really needed. So just consider this Brother Can You Spare 2 Dimes part 1. Or Brother Can You Spare a Dime part 1. You know what I mean. They're basically... You know what I mean. So this one is good. It's fine. It's got a lot of really good story. It's got a lot of really good heart. It's just that ending kind of is a little bit of a bump in the road. But when you see the next episode about it, everything gets better. So that was season 3 of The Simpsons. Archibald's seal of approval the whole way around. Yeah, this is easily the best episodes, or the best season so far. Some of the best episodes, really, and even the whole show. I could not pick a favorite one for the longest time. It was super, super hard. But ultimately, I had to narrow it down. I'm going to give a top 3, though, because I'm going to name the 2 runners-up. My first runner-up is Bart the Lover, because that one was just really great, and it was a nice episode for Bart. And then my next runner-up, which was barely my first pick, it was so close, was I Married Marge. This one is a fantastic one, and probably the best flashback episode we've gotten. It is an amazing one, but I had to pick Stark Raving Dad to be my favorite. Yeah, the first is best. This is like one of the few Simpsons episodes that does every single thing right, even though there's that little bump in the end, but I don't care about that so much. Because there are great Simpsons episodes, but they all have one like slight little issue, but this is perfect from beginning to end. Everything about it, the tone, the humor, the story, the guest star, nothing about this just doesn't work. Even like I said, that ending is a little dumb, but it still works. It's still funny and still fits in with the show. Especially when you think about it more and more and more. My least favorite episode, I guess, would be Lisa the Greek, but even then, it's not bad. Just slightly under average. So when the worst episode in the season is just slightly under average, you know that this was a good season. But there is one note I have to say about this one. If you could tell from my reviews, the first half of the season is really, really good. But then the second half just kind of peters out a little bit. Well, there are good ones. You've noticed I've said, it's good, it's fine, a lot about the second half. I don't know what it was, but, well, it's still a great season and is definitely one of the big cornerstones to what The Simpsons would later become. And another note I have to give is, where are all the Marge episodes? I've said her name like, what, 7 times in this whole video? She has some prevalence in the series, of course, as she's, one of the main characters. And she's also in this season a fair bit, but she gets, like, no episodes about her. The only thing we come close to is Colonel Homer. Other than that, Marge barely really gets a big leading role. She's in it for quite a bit in the Mr. Burns German one in the first part, but that's kind of it. To be fair, that one does change its focus a lot. First it's about Marge, then it's about Homer, then it's about Marge, then it's about Homer again, then it's about Mr. Burns, and then it's about Homer. It changes a lot. Like I said, she does get some good stuff to do, but when it comes to starring roles, she's got almost nothing. I'm really excited for season 4 now because, well, if the seasons are just going to keep getting better and better, wow, I'm looking forward to seeing what we got. I mean, I already know what we got, but again, for the sake of the review, we'll pretend we don't know. Okay, folks, see you next time. What'd you think about season 3 of The Simpsons? What was your favorite episode? What was your least favorite episode? What'd you think about Stark Raving Dad and Lisa the Greek? Let me know what you think about any of these things. Comments are always appreciated and discussion is always accepted. Just try to keep it civil. Okay, folks, see you next time. Bye-bye now!